Hi everyone, it's Adrian Leah. I'm going to show you guys a couple of things in this video. First, I'm going to give you a preview of my Earth Fairy Ogham deck that'll be released a couple months after my Earth Fairy Tarot. I am going to do more of a deeper discussion with the Druidcraft Tarot, as well as the Yogic Path. So, for my deck, this is one of the cards. And to give you an idea of how I paint it, I usually shape it first and then I outline. So I hope you guys are excited about it. Hopefully I don't have to do an extension on the release of the Earth Fairy Tarot because of the coronavirus, but this one will be coming out a couple months after. So for the Druidcraft, this is my first copy of the Druidcraft. I got it over 5 years ago. I bring that up because I'm going to do a side-by-side flip through of some of the cards. I already did a side-by-side flip through of all three decks that have different trimmings on them. So this one has everything trimmed and just leaves the picture, and I'm just going to show the full size. For my other flip through, I have one that I was gifted that still had the titles on, so that won't be in this video. But I love how I brought it out recently. I gilded it in a faded gold marker, and I love how it looks like an old book. So this one, I feel like I really connect with it so much more because before I had this deck and I trimmed it, I felt a little bit of a disconnect where I didn't use it for a couple of years because it looked a bit harsh with the dark brown and the white edges. So a couple days ago I decided to put gold edging on it, and it just complemented the deck and I feel like it's more balanced. Although I do feel like this deck seems more of my earthy Mighty Oak deck, and I consider it more of a yang masculine. And I feel like it complements the energy of my Everyday Witch Tarot, which I consider more feminine. I also have the Wildwood, that's also more feminine for me. So I don't use that deck as much, but with these two decks, these are my most used yin and yang ones. So, well, at least for over the years altogether. So with this one, I've noticed since it was the first time I took it out in a while, I've been seeing more Earth Fairy beings out, and I asked my deck why I haven't seen them in a while, and I ended up getting the Ten of Swords. And the Ten of Swords spoke to me in a way where I was focused on my mental state more than I was focused on the physical state. So I felt like there was a disconnect between me and the earth. And now that I'm using this deck again, I feel like there's a much more of a reconnection to the earth. I also noticed with this deck that I don't feel like I get white noise with it, or I don't get interruptions from spirits. It's a completely solid deck. It's like almost if I were to put a tree in front of maybe the spirit realm in a way where maybe if I were using another deck, I would have some type of interruption if I'm not trying to talk to Spirit. But this one just feels completely solid. And with getting it a couple of years ago, I feel like the cardstock and the imagery has changed. Well, the coloration of the imagery. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of cards. Some of them you might notice the coloration more than others. This one, you can see that the water is more faded for the Ace of Swords, and that there's less yellow in this. I call this the earlier edition. And that's pretty common with decks in general. And with the ones with Will Worthington, because over the years the cards change. So for the dress, there's more of the pink purple hue in here than this one. With the King of Pentacles, the green seems like a different shade of green than the newer one. I feel like maybe this one is more faded. This one, you can see that there's more vibrancy, and I don't think it's the way because I edged or I cut it. I think that it has to do with the actual card printing. I do love both of them, and I don't mind using both of them either. So another difference I find is that there's more pinkish. I feel like there's more life in the archetypes. There's more vibrancy in the dress in this one. I just found it interesting. Thought you guys might want to see it. His clothing is a bit darker in this one. And I love the full card. The picture or the painting reminds me of my mom. So you can see in her face that she has more of a coloring. I thought I would see more of a difference in this card, but there isn't too much. Maybe in the background. The sky is different. So I think both of them are great. But I used to use this deck it was one of my most used decks. And you could see there's more of a warmth here. And in this one, I'm also excited because when my friend gifted me her Druidcraft, she also gave me the large book. So I heard the smaller deck and the one that came with the small book and the large book have different cardstock, but I never got both of them before, and I suppose I have them now. But I still consider this a different coloring all around. And the trimmed one that my friend gave me is also the newer cardstock. And I don't usually use tarot guidebooks, but I love this one. I think it's so straightforward. And again, I feel like it's definitely a grounding deck. It's a great resource for those who want to look at or maybe learning, or even people that are experienced. It just has solid information. As for beginner decks, in a way I consider this one that you can begin with, but at the same time I feel like if you want to learn tarot, it may be a good idea to get a deck that has more movement in the cards. So instead of just focusing on symbols, there are decks out there that have more movement. So some of these cards have a lot of movement. After this video, I also am going to attach a short clip of the plants that we got. We got basil and rosemary. The rosemary does surprisingly well inside. Typically, it would be considered one that would need a lot of sunlight, but it depends, because in the south, well, I currently live in the Sunshine State, and a lot of sun gets in the house anyway. Today, my husband and I went to our local metaphysical shop, and I picked up a dolomite dragonfly. I think it's amazing, and with dolomite, it's considered the stone for herbalists because of the medicinal properties it has. I actually have one that I wrapped. I've had it for a couple of years. I might replace the chain and crochet a chain for it. But I used hemp cord for this. And I've been also using the Goddess Dream Oracle, as I've been using a lot. It's definitely an everyday deck for me. I've been loving using or having rabbit energy around, and I got New Beginnings, Take a Fresh Look at Life. And I find that the rabbit totem is incredibly helpful for me for switching up my deck routine, because a lot of times I stick to decks and I don't usually reach for my older ones, but now I've been taking out and putting back some stuff, and it's been a great process for me because I put my rabbit statue that I got the other day with the gift card my parents gave us. I put it on the bookshelf where I keep my decks, and it's just an amazing energy. So there's one specific deck that I've been really wanting to bring out. It's actually one of my oldest and favorites. This isn't my first copy. My first copy, I actually gave this deck to somebody that was nicknamed Bunny, and that seems pretty fitting, well, for her and for what I was talking about. But this deck is the Tarot Nova, and this is my deck that I use specifically for financial readings. And I really want to get better at finances. So, besides my husband helping me out and being really helpful with that, I also want to try to make, or I feel like I've been making better choices financially. But I really want to bring this one out. I actually have a picture taken of this deck specifically for my money reading. And if you haven't heard, I have a tarot reading sale. It ends at the end of March. So if you guys want to pick it up, every reading that I have besides my Wheel of the Year is $5. Sorry, I had to include that. The Wheel of the Year isn't, but it takes a bit of time to do that reading. So I really love this deck. I feel like with people that use it, you either like the deck or you don't like the deck. There's also a stigma of it being one of those Barnes & Noble decks that you just pick up when you're going up to purchase something else. So there's also that. I just feel like that mainly because I know in the tarot reader community I love getting maybe rare or vintage or out of print decks. Those are the main decks that I like going for because I like it to go in my collection, and I also like the older imagery of a lot of decks. I feel like they also have the coloration that I'm looking for and the artwork in general too. So, and I just want to mention as well that I've been loving using my mom's bag that she put my gifts in when she was visiting. It works so well. For me, it looks kind of posh when I'm just carrying it around and I have my yarn in here. And this is a bit of a earthy video, but I did want to show that I finished my shawl, and some decks consider the wands being like the tree suit too, or having those associations together, like the wands and fire. But I wanted to make a poncho for myself. I'm sorry, I feel like I said shawl. Luckily, I'm not that tall, so I didn't have to go far with it. I only did 6 repeats, so there's also the chain and then the half double crochet at the top. So altogether, counting the chain, is 26 for a row repeat. And I'm coming to the end of this, just a continental knit. I haven't been able to use my book because I don't like having multiple projects undone. I'm starting to decrease from my case. I really like using straights. But I also am going to start a sweater, or not a sweater, a cardigan sometime this year. And it'll be knitted because I prefer knitwear. But then if it's knitwear for like every day, but I also love doing stuff like this. Just because sometimes when I walk around and I have my crochet, maybe poncho, I tend to snag it on stuff. So one time when I was at the VA and we were in the shop that was near the cafeteria, I was walking and then there's stuff that there's like the inventory, and so I got caught, and luckily I'm not one that does fast walking, so I didn't take anything down with me. So I still love doing stuff like this though. But luckily the cardigan is going to be a longer project because I don't want to fill my whole closet up with stuff because I don't need it. So going to the Yogic path, there's a smaller box that comes with the cards, and there's also the box. So there is a dust jacket that goes over this. That's the same color as the book and the box. But it's a nice surprise just opening it and getting something very colorful. So this is the deck, and the back is blue like the book, and the box, the smaller card box. It has a matte finish and it feels nice. It reminds me of the Star Child Tarot. It might be the same artist. So what's great about this deck is that it tells you stuff that you already know, but then it asks you to meditate on it. So it isn't an intrusive deck. It kind of reminds me of the Eat, Pray, Love movie where Julia Roberts goes to different countries, and one of the countries is India, and then she tries to meditate, and she's having a hard time doing it when she first gets there. So one of the cards that I feel like is a great example of that, of having that inner knowing but still meditating on it, is Yamas, 8 Stages of Yoga, Universal Morality. Your kindness, compassion, and generosity beam to all around you. The compassion you display to all living things does not go unnoticed. Only honesty flows from your lips. You speak words steeped in truth. You display honor in your non-stealing because of your deep sense of control. You focus on what truly matters and have let go of excess belongings, practicing, or non-possessiveness. Continue shedding all that doesn't serve you as you blossom closer to your higher self. So I love the prompts, how they're prompts that you're not thinking too hard or you're not getting so distracted. It calms you down and it brings you back to self and rebalances. So I feel like that's my video. I also have my dream catcher that I shaped like the one that Mary Bo gave me. I love it. I might put a clip in because I haven't shown it in a while. I showed a video of when I first got it, but I put my twigs together, and hopefully by another video you'll see what I did with them. I feel like I might put it in the closet too. It's funny, I have a bunch of stuff in my closet, but this is just my closet. My husband has his own closet. It's in the same room. so it's convenient. That was it for my video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you in another one. Bye. These are the 2 herbs that we got today. I didn't put it in my closet where I film because I didn't want it to spill on anything. So the one on the left is rosemary and the one on the right is basil. We're gonna keep them outside, but I'm thinking about keeping the rosemary inside because it did well the last time that we got rosemary. So this is the dream catcher that Mary Bow gifted me a while back. I love it so much. She named it Thunderbird, and that reminds me of my poncho, the coloration, that it reminds me of a monarch butterfly or phoenix. My childhood home was on Phoenix Road, so it seems fitting, and a dragon. So this is orange. It's not the best lighting for it, but I'm so happy it arrived safely to me.